There are a lot of developments coming out of Iran, not just today, but just over the last couple of days, honestly, the last couple of months, after plans to get a peace deal signed on Friday fell through. So we just wanted to sort of put all of this together. There's just a lot to keep up with for the average person. So we just kind of wanted to get the most basic information, the most important information there for you. So we want to welcome our guest, William Muck. He's the North Central College political science professor. And I can tell you, Mr. Muck, I'm an Illinois girl, so I appreciate you being on with us this afternoon. And you have a special focus on international politics and also foreign policy. So I'm sure you have been watching this closely. But I just sort of wanted to put it all together for, someone who may not be watching this so closely. What has happened in the last maybe 24 hours?
Well, it's really been a lot to process, right?
Yeah.
So what happened is, basically a few days ago or a week ago, they signed this memorandum of understanding, which basically said, okay, now we're going to move to 60 days of negotiation where we're going to address the really difficult issues, a lot of the nuclear issues. We'll finalize the issue of opening the Strait of Hormuz. So basically what they've done is they've moved into this intense period of negotiation. And what we saw both Sunday and then also on Monday was really some high drama. So Sunday, Iran walked away from the negotiations and said they were going to close the Strait of Hormuz again. But it sounds like today was a much more productive day of conversation. So what we've learned is that the United States is going to release some sanctions on the sale of Iranian oil, basically allowing Iran to sell its oil internationally again. And Iran has agreed to allow international inspectors to look at its nuclear program. So it has been an up and down couple days, but it seems like the vibes were much better today, and they made some sort of basic level progress. So I think we can say today was a good day in those negotiations.
Yeah, I think the Vice President Vance, said it was a very, very good day, I think in his words, of negotiations between U.S. and Iran. Do we know what the status is then of the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, it sounds like, as of yesterday, they said Iran was saying it was closed. The United States was saying it's open. We don't really know. I mean, maybe there is a little bit of movement. So there's websites out sort of tracking the shipping. It does seem like there's a little bit of movement. Some ships are getting through, but we certainly haven't returned to a full open global marketplace where ships are coming in and out of that. So that's the hope, that in the next couple weeks that would happen, because we think about the economic implications globally and in the United States. So the goal is to get that more open. But again, all of this is so precarious because each day it does feel like there's the potential for progress, or there's the prospect that this also could collapse.
And you mentioned, you kind of hinted it there, the oil sales conversations. I think that's a big one when you talk about, of course, the Strait, and then to the average person, you talk about gas prices, right? So we know that there was, a 60-day waiver on the sale of Iranian oil. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this is a big deal for Iran because there were both the United States and the global international community put lots of sanctions on Iran, making it difficult for Iran to sell its oil. And if it sold, and when it did sell it, it had to sell it at a lower price. So this is a huge deal for the Iranian regime because this is a source of financing for them. So they can once again sell their oil globally. China's a big consumer, but actually large parts of Asia also buy this oil. So it is an infusion to their economy. And as we think about the negotiations between the United States and Iran, the U.S. is most focused on the nuclear program, and Iran is most focused on the economic opportunities. They want these sanctions to go away. They want to unfreeze their assets. So for Iran, it's really about getting back to being part of the global economy. So this was a big development for them. And I will say the memorandum of understanding had a lot of key details that really were thinking and addressing some of these economic concerns of Iran.
So do we know what will happen next as far as some of these conversations and what they will look like? I know it's kind of hard because it's sort of up and down right now, but do we know what to at least expect?
Yeah, I think what's happening is, so the initial memorandum of understanding dealt with some economic issues on the Iranian side, but it said we're going to push the really difficult questions on Iran's nuclear program to a later stage. And so the big questions that are still outstanding are what happens to the highly enriched uranium that Iran had that was bombed and it's sort of basically buried in the ground. Is Iran going to give that up? Will there be international inspectors that come in and remove that? So that's an outstanding question. The question about whether Iran can continue to enrich is still unaddressed. So they took a lot of those really difficult questions on Iran's nuclear program and pushed them away. So I think that's what we're going to start to get to, is those big issues. And I will say those are the most difficult ones, going all the way back to 2015 and the initial Iran nuclear accord, the JCPOA. JCPOA, it took them 18 months to negotiate that. And now we've set aside 60 days. So it's a really, really ambitious timetable. But I think that's where they're moving.
How has it been? I'm interested to know. How has it been for you just trying to keep up with everything and in track? I know this is part of what you do, but I'm just very interested in that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's sort of daily and bi-hourly, right? You're trying to see what's going on. And I will say the one thing that makes this so different from previous sort of negotiations between the United States and Iran is that the actors, both President Trump and Iran, are so, I guess, theatrical. So both sides love the optics. They love everything being in front of a camera. And that's not usually how this happens. Normally, if you go back to 2015, all of this was behind the scenes. You had a number of major international powers negotiating this. Not much news got out, but both President Trump and the Iranians love to use the international media to say they won the day or the other side won the day, and that makes it incredibly difficult. So as I watch all of this, it's fantastic political theater, but it makes it much more difficult to get a deal done. So I think that's where most of my mind has been.
You know, that's very interesting that you say that, because I think, you know, for the people who don't really follow it too closely, maybe they don't follow politics, they're like, oh, you know, they might think that it's normal, but it's interesting to hear the unprecedented part of it, you know, for someone like you who is consistently watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, diplomacy is usually behind the scenes because it's so difficult, right? And it can get very emotional, and then emotions tend to override the progress. And I think we're seeing that play out where, you know, President Trump can be very supportive one day, very critical the next day. What is he putting out on social media? And the Iranians are much the same. So that's so different than how things have been done in the past, where oftentimes there were big emotions, but you didn't see them on TV or, you know, elsewhere on social media. So that's what makes this sort of negotiation so extraordinary. And again, I think it makes it much more difficult to get to the finish line.
Yeah, I was just getting to that too. Do you think that has been, and I don't know if you could answer that, but do you think that that has been a part of why this has taken so long? Because if you jumped in, you know, this has been going on for months now, but if you jumped in earlier, I remember, you know, the president was like, okay, this will be short-lived. We'll have this all figured out. There will be a deal. And then now we're still, you know, weeks down the line and there is not a deal.
That's right. And President Trump is very good at sort of messaging and putting simple messages out there to kind of drive the public narrative. But international diplomacy is complicated, and the Iran nuclear program is incredibly complicated. And it's going to take, I think it's going to take well in excess of 60 days to negotiate a final agreement. And so the question is, can some of these actors who love the theatrics of politics step back and allow the process to play out? I think both sides have an interest in coming to a final agreement. Iran wants to return and have more access to its global economic resources. The United States would like to have a long-term deal on the Iran nuclear program. So they both have interests in coming together. The question is, can they calm their own sort of political ambitions to get to that point?
All right, William Muck, I hope you stay by the phone because we'll be calling you to get the latest updates. I know you'll be tracking it. We appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.